Hey, what's up? It's Jake from Nimbus DevOps, and I'm going to go over two more topics before we close this out. And the first one is class-based context managers. So, context managers work via two magic methods. And let's go ahead and make a file so I can show this. So let's do manager.class.py. And the first one is enter. Okay, and it's called just before entering the body of a with statement, and you have an exit, spelled like the word exit, which apparently I have problems with. And that's called when exiting the with body statement. That means you can easily create your own context manager simply by writing a class that implements those methods. So I could make a class called my context manager and just say define init self and then print something like my um, context manager init, comma, ID of myself, something like that. And then all you have to do is define it. So I have an enter for self, um, and this will print entering with context, and then I will return self. And then I will also define an exit self. I also need my execution type, my value, value, and tb. Okay, so I'm going to print, let's do an F line for execution type equals, and let's see, what else do we want? Let's do a space and the value. Let's do the value equals and a tb equals. Let's close that sucker. And then let's just print exiting with context. And then just return true. There you go. So I define a very simple context manager class called my context manager. There's a few things to note about this. So notice the enter method returns self. That's pretty common, but it's not required. You can return whatever you want, even none. The return of the enter method will be assigned to the variable name in the as clause of the with statement. So also notice the exec type, exec value, except TP parameters of the exit function. If an exception is raised within the body of the with statement, the interpreter will pass the type, value, and traceback of the exception as arguments through these parameters. If no exception is raised, then all the arguments will just be none. And then take a look at the exit, which you need to spell correctly for it to work. Exits method returns true. This will cause any exception raised within the with statement body to be suppressed, as if you'd handled it in a try except statement. If we'd returned false, the exception would continue to be propagated after the exit method is executed. So the ability to suppress exceptions means that a context manager can be used as an exception handler. The benefit of that is that you can write your exception handling logic once and reuse it wherever you need to. That's just one way in which Python can help you apply kind of like a dry principle to your code. And we could use this, let's go ahead and use it. So context underscore manager equals my context manager, and let's just call it, and then print about to enter with context, like that. And then I'll say with context manager as manager, print inside with context, and then I want to print the ID of the manager, and then I want to raise an exception and say exception inside with context, and then we will print this line will never be reached. And then after that, we will print after with context. Oh, what did I do? Let's see here. Print this, print the manager, raise exception, and this. What did I do? Raise exception. Yeah, that'll never reach that. Now, you will never get this. Here, we instantiated our context manager in a separate statement before the with statement. So I did this to make it easy so you can see what's happening. However, it's much more common for those steps to be combined with my context manager as manager. Running this code will give you some, this will be the output. So let's do manager. Enter. Oh, hi, how's it going? Try it again. Okay, there we go. So look at this output really carefully and make sure you understand what's happening. I printed some IDs to help verify that the object assigned to manager is really the same object that we returned from enter. And that's just to kind of make it a little bit easier to spot, right? You can change the return values from enter and exit methods and see what happens, and you'll see those change here. But in here, you'd have to follow along in the code. Like we've defined this class, we have a context manager, and we're calling this class now. And the first thing it does is say my context manager in it, and it gives an ID. So it's going to initialize and print this, which it did. The next step is it says about to enter with context. So it didn't actually do anything here. It just printed this left and then said print this, and that's all. Now, when I said with context manager as manager, print inside with context, right? And then we'll see what happens. So we said about to enter, and then after it says entering with context. So you'll see that that happens here. So it's going to do that as self. And then inside the context, it's going to be inside here. And then it's going to print the ID. And then I'm going to get the exit, which will give me the type, the value, the traceback, and then print exiting with context, and then it'll print after with context, and there you go. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. You're really not going to have to do this like very often. But if you are somebody that everybody's going to a lot as a primary, as an engineer or a developer, you could find yourself doing this a lot. So it's something worth knowing and really helps you understand when you get traceback errors. The majority of us just read a traceback error and then go fix our code, and that's it. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed that, and we will stop here and move on to the next section.